Hello, my name is McInnis, and today I will be teaching and training you on noise exposure. The objectives today will be to understand 29 CFR 1910-95 C and D. We will also learn what occupational noise exposure means and how important it is. We will then interpret the difference between 29 CFR 1910-95 C and 29 CFR 1910-95 D. Now then we will also explain how they work together and explain why both regulations are important to the workplace and safety of the employers and employees. Finally, we will learn ways to prevent and/or reduce possible injuries to noise exposure in the workplace. So it is first best to understand what is occupational noise exposure. Occupational noise exposure are constant levels of loud noise over a period of time. Now, these levels of noise can be tested to determine the impact on a person. Now, these levels tested are very important as they can cause potential life-threatening damage to the ear. Regular testing of noise levels are often done to test levels of noise. Once these tests are done, equipment may be necessary if levels are too loud for a certain period of time. So the reason why it's first important to understand what occupational noise exposure is because of the side effects that can be caused from it. Now, potential side effects such as hearing loss is one of the most common ones. Due to hearing loss, many accidents can happen in the workplace if a worker is not able to hear or follow instructions as well as they would be if they had clear hearing. Now, another side effect can possibly be hearing aids later on in life. Another side effect can also be loss of communication and negative impacts on personal health and also personal relationships, as it can be hard to have a conversation on a daily basis with anybody. Now, as you see to the picture to the right, one of the most frequent causes of hearing loss is exposure to loud noise. So you can see just as important as hearing loss is in our everyday lives and how important it is to prevent and reduce this exposure. So without getting too far throughout the presentation, I would like to show a short little clip on how hearing loss has impacted many people before. This video shows how real and true it is to actually lose hearing and how it doesn't just affect your work environment and your workplace. It affects your whole life, your family, your friends, not just a couple weeks you think it's going to just get better or and it's not. It's going to affect the rest of your life. It shows just how important it is to take this just as serious as any other hazard in the workplace can be. I would like now to transition into the regulations. Now that we know what occupational noise exposure is and how it can affect somebody, it is important to know the regulations that also are behind them. So 29 CFR 1910-95C primarily deals with hearing conservation programs. Now, these programs are designed from testing over and over, monitoring and learning about the work environment where the workers are and what decibels are tested in certain areas under certain environments and different productions. So, without further ado, programs must be made if noise exposures equal or exceed an 8-hour time weighted average of 85 decibels. So as you can see in this graph, it shows a very important visual element on how permissible exposure time with decibels compare to one another. As you can see, like last slide, 85 decibels at an 8-hour exposure limit is too much. As you go on, you can see 94 decibels to an hour, all the way down to 103 decibels. It's too much for a 7.5 minutes. This graph also shows the hearing loss grades. You can see how different levels of decibels, all the way from low to 26 decibels, all the way to 81, have different effects on people. As you get started with 26 to 40 decibels, you can see it's kind of like a slight, mild effect. You don't really need protection. It's not as severe as it would be as you get to 80 and 90 decibels. Next, you would go to the 41 to 60 decibels. It's a little more moderate, a little louder. Um, it's a little difficult to understand people as they talk. From there, you go 61 to 80 decibels, and it's a lot more serious than moderate and mild. You can start experiencing a lot more loud noise. However, you don't quite need equipment just yet if you're exposed to over an 8-hour work experience. Finally, as you get over 81 decibels, this is where it gets really important. As you get to that 85 decibel mark, where it's very loud for a very continuous time, it can be very potential dangerous and can have a long-lasting effect. In this graph, it shows NEOSHA standards, which is National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, compared to OSHA standard, which is Occupational Safety Health Administration. However, they are somewhat similar, but in some instances, you can see here over 85 decibels up to 8 hours is their standard, compared to OSHA's where 85 decibels to 16 hours is their exposure. Now, both these safety administrations work together to make sure it can be the most safe work environment. So you may be asking yourself, why are these programs important and what do they have to do with me? So first and foremost, these programs are implemented to prevent and reduce noise exposure. Preventing and reducing protects the workers. Now, loss of hearing will affect every aspect in one's life. Like the previous slides before with the side effects, it can cause misunderstanding people. You can have effects such as ringing in the ear constantly and difficulty hearing simply the television or telephone. So it's not just an effect that's going to have in the workplace, it's going to be a long-lasting effect. Now I added this chart into the right to show you how different components and different productions uh, release different exposures of decibels. You can see a carpeted office has 60 decibels, where if you go to a city intersection, it has 85 decibels. And then the highest is a cheap compressor, all the way up to 98. So it's very important to understand what you're working with and what decibels you could be using. So I'd like now to get into 29 CFR 1910-95D. Now this regulation mainly focuses on monitoring the noise exposure in the workplace. However, monitoring can be done before or after and even during a program is made, thus making it so much important and necessary to be done. Now, according to OSHA, when exposure may equal or exceed an 8-hour time-weighted average of 85 decibels, the employer shall develop and implement a monitoring program. Now, instruments and equipment are designed to monitor the area. So monitoring doesn't just mean do it one time and whatever the results are, you keep that. No, that is not the case. Whenever production is altered, monitoring must be done. Other areas in the workplace must be monitored to test levels as well to determine if one area is higher noise compared to another. And then repeated testing can be done as well to determine how levels differ in production. Now, while you might be in a workplace that experience noise levels that are way above OSHA standards for a certain period of time, there are ways in which you can protect yourself from experience hearing loss. First and foremost, if you want to monitor the noise, you can use sound level meters. These meters can be attached to a person or dropped nearby to detect the noise over a certain period of time. Once this noise is interpreted and tested and experienced, personal protection equipment can be worn, such as earmuffs or earplugs, to prevent hearing loss. So like the last slideshow said, you have your sound level meters. Much like this one right here, the Noise Pro DL dosimeter. It tests levels of noise, and if it exceeds a certain level over a period of time, it determines if a program needs to be needed, and therefore that's why the monitoring is so important. And if a program is needed, you could always have your personal protection equipment readily available to help the workers' safety. So why is monitoring important? Monitoring allows to test noise in a specific area to determine if levels are too high. Much like said in the slide previously, there might be different levels of a workplace that experiences noise compared to one another. It's important to understand if one place needs personal protection equipment while the other is far enough away and doesn't experience it for that loud or that long of a time. Monitoring also reduces and or prevents potential injuries. And finally, it keeps the workers safe. I would like to throw in a little pop quiz question. According to NIOSH, National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, at what decibel is noise exposure at a potential threat for a period of 8 hours? I'll give you a few seconds to determine what your answer is. Well, you can first determine it's not 100 nor 105. It is not 95 either. The closest one is 90 decibels, but however, for a period of 8 hours, it is not that either. Therefore, it is none of the above, and the correct answer is 85 decibels. As we conclude our presentation, I would like you to understand why 29 CFR 1910-95 C and D are so related. First and foremost, they both work together to form a safer work environment. Monitoring levels of noise determines if a hearing conservation program needs to be present. Now, monitoring can happen before, after, or even during a program. Now, the reason why you monitor after a program is already implemented is determine if the program is still up to date or if the program needs to change due to new data and new analysis. Now, hearing programs can include personal protection equipment, and monitoring in different areas determines if personal protection equipment is needed in other areas of the workplace that are nearby or far away from where the testing was done. So I'd like to end with another short little video on a hearing conservation program and how also monitoring work with one another to determine how a program can be made. I would like to end this presentation on the fact that your opinion matters. The workers that are out there every day, you matter. If you work in a place where you think exposure exceeds a limit or you experience following this training, you must complete the post-training quiz. The quiz must be given out by your instructor. This quiz focuses on many multiple choice questions and 3 true and false questions. It relates directly back to the hearing conservation programs and monitoring programs that we have gone over in this presentation. Furthermore, this concludes our presentation. Let's make the workplace safer.